So, as part of my effort to continuously upload consistently, I'm on the lookout for videos and video ideas that I can knock out quickly without much preparation, for days where there's not a lot of time, or I'm tired, or both. And I stumbled upon this because I've got a lot of teams saved, teams I like, and even once in a while I will still get the idea to make another team. So I figured I would start off by making videos about the teams I like, to show them individually with the attention that they deserve, as well as a replay or two that they've been used in, to give an idea. And once I'm done with those, then I can just throw out teams that I built but haven't tried, and have someone else go try them and see if they're decent, or have fun with them, or whatever you want to do with them. So my hope is, obviously if you want to use this team and other teams like it that I'll upload, then that's great. But my ultimate hope is that by showing these teams and explaining the processes behind them, then you will be inspired to make your own. You'll have more knowledge on what you might need in a tier like DPP. And you also might say, what, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to make an even better team than this one, and it's going to be great, and all that stuff. So, yeah, this is a team full of a bunch of stuff I like, which is always a good start. It's not just haphazardly thrown together, they do have synergy. And I will be showing a replay of the tournament game I used this in for the visual people. So basically it's T-Spike's offense, but with some, I guess, modern changes. I really don't think this team would be too out of place. I mean, the core of T-Spike's offense is always so great. The Rose, Heatran, Water, in this case Swampert, which is good for the physical backbone, Rotom. I mean, even pre-Latias, that's going to be fine. Then you have a second Steel, and then, Latias, obviously, it holds it together really well. You can do all sorts of things on teams like this, so lots of room for experimentation. So what I wanted to try here is the titular double Scarf, because Scarf Roserade is really good. It gives it a ton of utility against offense, and I don't think it really impedes its ability to get T-Spikes. And in fact, more valuable than T-Spikes is going to be that early sleep, letting it get the jump on Aerodactyl and Azelf leads. And of course, then you've got that fantastic revenge killing option later on. And Modest is, I think, not necessarily a must, but if your team is so soft against Scarf Rotom that you need Scarf Roserade to outspeed it, then, because I think it's pretty difficult to make a team that's out and out weak to Scarf Rotom. Not that it's not valuable to be able to take Scarf Rotom on, but generally, I generally don't think it's necessary. And as with any team, then a lot of these. This is why I really don't like having definitive versions of teams, because there's always things you can change based on preference, or the state of the metagame, or a million factors. Which side of the bed you woke up on that morning. So this I could easily ditch HP ground. Oh, I probably wouldn't. I think HP ground is pretty important here. Because Heatran can be kind of a pain, depending on if you're not careful. So I think it's a good option to have for sure. But yeah, you start the game off nicely, and then you switch it in later on and revenge kill. You wall break. Yeah, I mean, this team's specialty, I'll just say right off the bat, is killing offense. It is really, really anti-offense. And it does have tools for defense, of course. Since my preferred playstyle is to make a team that gives options against whatever you're going to face in order to outplay. That's my definition of a good team. Because I think that when you overextend yourself trying to quote-unquote automatically win certain matchups, it's pretty hard to do so and still maintain a functional team. And you have to execute most of the time because the teams you're beating are also good and well-rounded. So it's very difficult without overextending yourself to get yourself such a good matchup that you don't have to execute anyway. So I like teams that give you the opportunity to face off against anything as long as you execute. So Rose, definitely, it's a great Pokemon. Its stock is lowered a little bit, I guess, in the age of Spike's immunities and Latias, but I think the early sleep and its utility against offense is really valuable. So we come to the second Scarfer, Heatran, which I think is a great Scarfer. The one thing I would right off the bat I would think about changing is making it plus special attack. I had a reason for making it what you call it. Oh, I think, yeah, it was to give more security against DD Dragonite, since this is the revenge killer for it, not Roserade. So that's fair enough. But I do think that if you think you can handle DD Dragonite with the rest, you know, like sometimes I've even thought about dropping the T-Spikes on Rose on this team and giving it something else. Then, yeah, you could absolutely go with plus special attack, which I think does make a significant difference when trying to bludgeon through things with Fire Blast, as you'll see in the replay of this game, actually. And especially when trying to mess with bulky Latias with Dragon Pulse. Also worth mentioning that this Roserade could be double Spike Scarf, which I also like, or it doesn't have to be Scarf at all. See, this is what I mean by options. There's just so many out there. But I do like the double Scarf since it really... I mean, at some point you might think, okay, offensive... the anti-offense on this team is a little overkill. You know, I might agree with you, depending. But I also don't think it really comes to the detriment of what other sets might bring. I think that it has a lot of upside. And being anti-offense, I think, is very important in being able to deal with things like Dragon Dance spam and Para spam. So, yeah, Roserade is also very helpful in messing with Para spam, since you get that early sleep, and then you T-Spike and Machamp is no longer nearly as scary. It's great. So, you have to, you know, execute well against it, of course, but well worth the effort. So, Scarf Heatran is, I think, a great Scarfer, because it forces a lot of switches, so it's not like it's going to be difficult to get rocks up, even though it's Scarfed. And what I really like about Heatran as a Scarfer, rocks or not, is that it is a Scarfer that is useful against defense, because it has Explosion. So the way one of the ways this team deals with defensive teams is that once T-Spikes go down, Scarf T-Tar is really not a good answer to Heatran. So Heatran is going to be baiting in things like Latias and Clefable, especially if you can pick up like a Will-O-Wisp boost from Restock Rotom if you're facing that. So and if you can force Latias in and Dragon Pulse it, that's really good, because the ideal is that you you blow up on Clef. Also fun is that against defensive teams, you really don't need the Scarf on Heatran. In fact, you kind of like the flexibility of not having it, so you can use it to absorb Clefable's knockoff. And you can even put Magma Storm on, I like Magma Storm Scarftran, and you could absolutely run Magma Storm on it to really lock in a trap KO. You know, chip T-Tar even harder. I really like that change, actually. You might want to put rocks on like Swampert or Zong or something to, you know, maybe make it so it's Magma Storm and Fire Blast. So Magma Storm isn't your only stab move on Scarf Heatran. But hey, you know, I'm just spitballing options here. But I do like what Magma Storm does to increase the trapping capability. I mean, it's just a great move in general, accuracy willing. But I also like what it does to improve the defensive matchup. So, yeah, you absorb that knock and things get pretty nasty. But you have to set it up. That's the tough part. Or not even the tough part. It's the part you have to be aware of. You know, I think, and that's what I mean by execution. You can't really autopilot this kind of stuff. So, yeah, you force rocks, and then you're still useful against defensive teams with Explosion, and against offensive teams, it's fairly self-explanatory. That's also, it would be nice to fit Earth Power on this thing. I agree. So, you know, if there's all sorts of things. You can take out Bronzong for like Jirachi or Stealth Rock Metagross or something. I think that'd be fine, and then your world opens up with Heatran. But yeah, I like it as it is. Here's another obvious Stealth Rock candidate, but I like this Swampert set because it puts a lot of pressure on defensive teams. And you could also run like Focus Punch or Superpower to mess with Clefable even more, for sure. But I like HP Electric because it totally messes with... I think I showed this in my DPP Underrated Sets video recently. But I think it's really valuable to completely turn the tables on Gyarados, as it can be such an obnoxious Pokemon to deal with. You know, maybe I overestimated Gyarados against this team, because, I mean, there is a Scarf... Roserade and, you know, Latias, but, you know, you can't really be too safe, because this isn't a team that really hard counters Gyarados per se. So I think it's good to have the option, one, just the backup option to check it, like switching Swampert into it if it comes to that. But I think it's also good because Gyarados is going to be switching into Swampert a lot. Other than that, this is a really great threat against a lot of stall teams. Looking back on it, I would probably pump it more full of attack EV, so you really pressure Clefable. And yeah, it's fairly simple. Maybe some more defense EVs too to take on things like T-Tar a little better. But yeah, I think that's more or less it. Yeah, okay, so Bronzong. This set on this team is what makes it a little weird. I remember my buddy Heist used to run these kind of like... For anyone who's ever played like DPP or Black and White Ubers, there's this concept called Quick Stall, which didn't really translate to OU, because the whole idea of Quick Stall is stalling with fast Pokemon. Like Shaman Sky with its Subseed set. That was the primary one. So you can't really do that with OU because there aren't that many like super fast stally Pokemon. Not in the same way anyway. But the general idea of some of his teams was that he would run these like very aggressive teams, but they would still have like T-Spikes, and then he would have a Protect Toxic Bronzong or something. And just completely... So he would like overwhelm most teams with offense. Like defensive teams he would overwhelm with offense, but if he went up against another defensive team, or another offensive team, sorry, then he would have one of the most obnoxious Pokemon for them to deal with. And that is, you know, what this Bronzong is here to do, is to be really, really obnoxious against offense. Famously unkillable and, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options here, though. It doesn't have to be Protect Toxic. There's, as always, a million things you can do. You can run Trick Iron Ball, Trick Choice Band. Those would be my go-tos if I were to think about it again, or to reconsider another one. Just because it's always good to have more Trick against defensive stuff, whereas this right now this Bronzong's use against defensive teams is more or less bluffing it as Explosion. Yeah, but a Trick would go a long way, and it's still good against offense. And you know, I would even say it might even be the better option, given how solid against this team can be against offense already, with the double Scarf and, you know, just Bronzong and Swampert's natural defensive presence. To say nothing of Latias and Rotom, who are no slouches in dealing with threats themselves. You know, both with resist. But I mean, I was gonna say, you know, they do it through speed and offensive pressure, but you know, they're no slouches in the resist and bulk department either. So, yeah, I think it's worth considering. But I also like this Zong set a lot. It's really nasty. I was also thinking of like funny stuff like Heal Bell. Obviously, you could put rocks on it and, you know, free up Heatran to do some stuff. But yeah, this is a nasty, nasty set. Okay. Speaking of Trick. Here is Specs Latias, always a threat, very nasty with hazards down, because it's always... I mean, the basic idea is once T-Tar or Scarf T-Tar can't switch into it, then it's going to really mess something up with Trick. And then, you know, it's I think a lot of newer gen players with, you know, access to crazy strong Pokemon that are completely unwallable, then they think of breaking Stall as, you know, one Pokemon that destroys everything on the opposing team. And in DPP, especially, then it's really not like that at all. You don't really have that level of threat. But, you know, there's a million tools to break Stall. It's just more of a combined systematic effort. So, Specs Latias is doing that for sure. I think I might also consider Healing Wish on this over Dragon Pulse, which is a favorite of mine on Specs Latias in general. But just to, you know, get, like if... like, let's say if Swampert has to eat a burn to bring down Heatran or Rotom, whatever the matchup is, then it would be nice to give it a second life. Especially because Swampert is nice against offense. I mean, this is an offensive Swampert, so it's not a super hit-taking machine, but it's still very good against it. And to bring that back against an offensive team late game would be really good. So I don't think there's anything else that you would really want to chuck on it, because this thing does not get heal block itself. For some reason I thought it did for a second, but I was like, no, wait, no it doesn't. That would have been used. Yeah, but I would definitely consider Healing Wish over Dragon Pulse, which, a nice idea in theory, but rarely winds up panning out in practice. So yeah, I do like Timid Latias here, though, because it gives the team a form of non-scarf speed, a really good one. Yeah, and speaking of forgotten threats, so if you really wanted to pile on the anti-stall thing, you could make this Rotom scarfed. Sorry, not scarfed. You don't want to do that. You want to make it specs, because it hits really hard and threatens a trick. So, and, it keeps T-Tar away, especially once it's been poisoned by T-Spikes. And with Specs Hydro, of course. I like this set a lot, because it can, annoy Clef, because it can, just Pain Split on it and attack it and hit it hard. And just be obnoxious. And this would also be nice with Healing Wish support from Latias. But yeah, in general, Life Orb Rotom is a severely forgotten threat. I like the flexibility here of Life Orb Hydro Pump in dealing with Heatran in particular. But there's definitely, tweaks you could make to make it specs. And it would be great, because that's also a fantastic set. But yeah, I talked about this set in my underrated sets video recently, so I won't harp on about it too much. But I really like the flexibility and the power of this on Rotom. And the speed, of course, which is kind of slept on, because people think Rotom is generally Scarf or Rest Talk, and they forget that it can be a very, very nasty threat in and of itself. So, yeah, I think that's more or less it. But yeah, you could easily run a triple. I actually like that idea, running 3. I mean, the main thing you would want to watch out is something like Heatran. But hey, if you have Swampert and like Healing Wish Latias, I think it's fine. You could very easily run 5 choice items here, and 3 of them have Trick, so you're not missing out on messing with defense. I like that idea a lot. See, variance. Okay, so now I will show the replay of when I use this in a tournament, and just to give you an idea of how it functions. Those are good enough dimensions. Alright, so this is against Fakes. Great player. So, Rose, Zapdos, you're going to want to sleep this. It's not going to be running Spec Sleep Talk. Not now. So you just sleep it, and you don't have to worry about it being faster and subbing in your face, because Scarf. So Heatran comes in, scares it out, gets up rocks. Fantastic. In comes T-Tar. This is why I would definitely, consider. I hate to make Swampert slower than Spedef Heatran on this team, but I think it might be better just to get more defense, not HP, defense, because this is not taking special attacks. Defense and attack on it. I might drop it below. I would consider it for sure. Below Spedef Heatran, because I don't think it makes enough of a difference enough of the time. So. Yeah, definitely for situations like this where it takes the CB superpower quite hard. But yeah, you don't know quite what's coming in. I double switch. Yeah, I think I do. Oh, this was not because I thought that he would switch, but I wasn't sure. I don't know how fast his CBT tar is, and I don't know if he's going to stay in and go for another superpower, which would be a roll to KO me. So if he switches, then Life Orb Rotom is a very good one-on-one Pokemon against whatever he might send in. And it's just because, whatever it's going to be, like Zapdos usually suggests Starmie. And so if Starmie comes in, then Rotom would love to face that one-on-one and pose a threat. Or, if it's a Breloom or something, then I would love to fire off a Life Orb Shadow Ball at it. So things like that. And if he stays in his superpowers, then obviously I am a Rotom that's forcing out a T-Tar. That's a very good position to be in. So in comes Latias, which reveals no lefties. So I don't want to stay in and take that. And I think I should go to Bronzong here. I do, yeah. Not specifically because of that. Because if I go to Heatran to absorb Draco, then first of all, I'm not going to take it very well. And second of all, he might do exactly what he did. and I would much prefer to have Bronzong here so I can Toxic it, which he does not let me do. I don't know. I mean, the offensive nature of the team made him think, some sort of gyro ball was coming his way, which, much more than Toxic, which is why I enjoyed, the surprise factor of this Bronzong is also very nice because you're not expecting it on this kind of offensive team. So, yeah, but I mean, a Trick Band or Trick Iron Ball would also be very nice. I guess it's not a 5 choice if you're tricking an Iron Ball, but hey. Anyway, so Swampert gets Toxic instead, running away, and this is a free switch to Rose as rocks are coming up. So here is a turn where I won't pretend to, like, say, oh, I read his soul, I knew he was staying in, because, spoiler, he stays in. But first of all, I got the feeling that he was considering it just because he was taking his time, and he's not in the best position. I'm putting a lot of pressure on him. And he doesn't want to just fall behind as I T-Spike, because the T-Spike seemed like the freest thing in the world. And I would like to T-Spike for sure. It would be great to get that poison on T-Tar. But I mean, there's definitely a steal on that team. And here's why I like Roserade being modest. Because if it's like an offensive Jirachi, then it's going to take a pretty nasty chunk from a modest Leaf Storm. So it was partially, I have a feeling he's going to stay in, and partially I want to see what his answer to this Leaf Storm is going to be. Because Zapdos, Rocks, and Sand, and Sleeping, not going to want to. If Latias comes in, I welcome that. Rocks, Sand, and modest Leaf Storm, I will take it. And if it's a Jirachi, then I would like for him to reveal another Pokemon for me to sting it a little bit. So, yeah, a little bit of both, and playing it safe because it would be stupid to have Roserade needlessly killed. Plus, Swampert is a little less value now that it's been Toxic, and I mean, what's it really checking on my team? I mean, Heatran, sure, but I would also really, if he's going to offer Swampert up and make it easier for my Heatran to potentially sweep later on, then that would be wonderful. So it's likely, since there's a Zapdos, then, anti-hazard, Starmie, and plus a Steel, so Jirachi, very likely. And I realize I've played the game, so I know what the lasts are, but I'm saying this is the kind of thought process that you can apply to your own games. Like, oh, what does my opponent need to have on his team? Not need necessarily, but that Zapdos sure would like help in removing hazards. So, for example. Anyway, Leaf Storm goes off and Swampert goes down. So, in comes Jirachi. Yeah, there's Jirachi. I want to see what kind of if it's Wish Protect or offensive. Wish Protect, I sit on with Bronzong forever, and if it's offensive, then it doesn't have longevity, which is wonderful. So that double to Heatran was to try and catch Fire Punch, because I don't want to have Heatran switch in to this if possible. Into a Body Slam if possible, which is very possible with Bronzong around. So I get Heatran there, and I just go for Fire Blast, trying to wear down T-Tar, and there is Starmie revealing itself. So that's totally fine. It's at half health. It's going to be... I mean, this is looking like... No, this is a balanced team, and Scarf Heatran can be very, very threatening. So you just put the T-Spikes down, and yeah. So now Rotom comes in on the free switch, and on the free recover, sorry, and goes for Shadow Ball. And this is why I like the flexibility of Specs Rotom, because it's like, oh, is it going to be... it's not going to want to send out a choice or a Shadow Ball into T-Tar, but it's not a choice Shadow Ball, which makes it a lot freer to use. And Shadow Ball goes off, and Latias is obliterated, and Starmie obviously would have been an if as well. And if T-Tar comes in, fine, because that means I load a Hydro Pump on it after, and Heatran is going to look really, really nasty. So, also, even Roserade looks fairly nasty with Rocks up, because if it's an offensive Jirachi, which I don't know yet, since I don't think I calced the Body Slam damage on Bronzong. Mostly because I figured it's not going to make that much of a difference yet. It's not that urgent at this point. I would prefer to keep the timer up for later on. So, Hydro goes off, does a big chunk to that bulky CBT tar, and down it goes. In comes Roserade, again, trying to force damage on the Jirachi, wear it down, and got that almost 30 to a max HP Jirachi. Which, after the calc, you know that it is going to be max HP and not, like, Spadef. So, much less likely to be Wish Protect. And it could be physically defensive Wish Protect, but very unlikely on a team with Swampert. So, he makes a great double switch to Starmie there to try to regain some tempo, but Bronzong is actually kind of a threat in its own right at this point. So, do I Protect, I think? I do Protect, rather than going right for Toxic, just to squeeze more lefties out of it, because I'm being really paranoid of Jirachi, as any DPPer should be. So I want to have as much health. And if he's just gonna, I thought he was just gonna stand and spin. So if he's gonna do that, you know, why not take the extra lefties? So, yeah, that was maybe gratuitous because I'm going to, you know, it's like 2%. Oops. It's 2%, so maybe I should have just Toxic or something. But I didn't think he was gonna switch to what's it called? T-Tar, though. I don't know what that T-Tar switch was. Maybe... Yeah, I'm not sure. Did I show Protect? I don't think I showed Protect yet. So I'm not sure what he was expecting. I'm sure he had a reason, of course. I wasn't just like, oh, I wonder what happens if I switch to T-Tar here. Yeah, but now I want to... Again, CB Tar hits hard. This is especially defensive Bronzong, so I am going to go for that extra 2% recovery. But he goes back to Starmie. So I assume that with that double switch, with that switch back to Starmie, then he assumed that I would switch to something to take it on. I'm not sure what, though, because T-Tar doesn't match up well against Roserade. And there's no... Maybe he was expecting like a Latias or something, which, you know, would make sense. But Latias is also, you know, speaking of threats... With T-Tar pretty much dead, I'm so tunnel visioning on Scarf Heatran in this, you forget just how terrifying Latias is. Especially, you know, Roserade threatening for its own Scarf cleanup. So, see, the double Scarf Assault is really, really nice. And, sorry, I feel a sneeze coming. Nope, I hate that. Anyway... so Heatran is going to... so yeah, Roserade weakening Jirachi is also really nice for Latias. So Rapid Spin goes off, fine. Starmie gets Toxic, it's going to get forced out. And do I wonder what I do? I think I go to Heatran here, because Zapdos... Yeah, I do. Wow. Cool. Competent. Yeah, so now with Starmie at 69, then, and T-Tar almost dead, then... Zapdos doesn't want to take Fire Blast. Jirachi obviously doesn't. So Fire Blast goes off and to a KO. And because it's Scarf Heatran, then Starmie gets outrun into a KO'd. So everything looking great. So that's basically it. That's, yeah. I just sack Roserade there for Poison Point. But look, Scarf Train is really... Not to say that sub Zapdos can't still do some very nasty things. But it looks decent at least. So Protect there, he makes a good move. No reason to risk extra damage on the Bronzong and potentially lose to Zapdos or Jirachi. You know, Protecting there guarantees that T-Tar won't come in again until something else has been KO'd, because it can't switch in anymore because it'll die to Poison. So that's much more important. So think about it more as in terms of risk-reward to... like, yeah, okay, you might switch to Zapdos, and okay, you would like to HP Ice it and weaken it, but if you Protect here, you guarantee that T-Tar will not come in again unless something else has been KO'd, and either of Zapdos or Jirachi being KO'd is really good. So, better to guarantee it, especially because you need Bronzong's health for dealing with something like a sub Zapdos or sub Jirachi, you know, or both. Or at least helping in the assault. So Heatran comes in, and this thing gets a long sleep. Well, it's 3 turns, that's fine. And I go for Rocks, just to, you know, you could Boom, but Rocks is really nice because it prevents T-Tar from switching in on a Boom. Because if I Boom and I hit Jirachi, that's fine because that weakens it into Latias range. Spec Surf will smack it after. Especially because it's not minus attack Scarf Heatran. I mean, that's something you can change if you want, but I really like the extra boost to attack. So, and you can also, because if you Boom as the switch in dies to Stealth Rock, you don't die. So that's really big. So I think rocks are important there, and it's important to put extra pressure on Zapdos for when it switches out and back in. I think that's really valuable. So it's more of a guarantee of being safe against everything. Because, you know, even if I wasn't expecting T-Wave there, but even if Zapdos, even if it does get T-Wave, then I can just switch out and come back in later. So late game Rock's going to be useful. Go to Swampert because I assume it's going to be able to take an HP Ice and Ice Beam it back in return. You know, maybe even Torrent Hydro. I think I just Ice Beam and played it safe. But he's T-Wave HP Grass, which is a very unexpected set. So, what do I go to? Oh, I go to Heatran and I just blow up, yeah. And see, this exact thing happens. Where, yeah, don't KO. And now, no sense in getting fancy and switching around and risking Bronzong to a burn. So, I just stay in and boom because I like the damage on Jirachi. And see that's a very, very healthy chunk. And Surf. And now I think I just go to Bronzong to Toxic for the game. So, yeah. I mean, Latias will win one-on-one anyway, especially because it's Dragon Pulse. But actually, even if I tricked, then it would be fine. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I hope this was enjoyable in some way, shape, or form. And I will see you in the next one.